and welcome to this session. We have with us Mayank Batwal, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Aditya Birla Health Insurance. Mayank, thank you for joining us at the summit.
My pleasure.
Mayank, while this has been and continues to be a time of disruption, fortunately for your company, this wasn't a sector which saw a demand shock during the pandemic. And what are some of the key insights and trends in terms of consumption or people buying insurance or their focus around health and wellness and maybe, just mental health and well-being as well?
Yeah, you're right, Kumar. I mean, it's unfortunate that you need a pandemic, an unprecedented event like this for the need for more focus on, I would say, health more broadly and health financing as a particular aspect to become, area of larger focus for consumers. Because, whilst everyone knew that there is a relevance of health and health insurance, but this whole thing made it apparent here and now, right? So it was like you need, unfortunately, everyone started seeing someone or the other in the family, extended family, colleagues, friends, getting infected and being in the hospital, and it could happen to anyone, right? It was not about people who were more vulnerable. It could happen to anyone and everyone, unfortunately, and sometimes people didn't even know what led to it. So therefore, people realize that they need insurance. So to that extent, yes, there has been a greater awareness, and we have seen people more willing. Products like COVID specific products have been very successful. So we did see that that particular trend. I think more broadly, we also saw people being more willing to look at the broader area of health, right? I'm sure you would have read about more consumption around this whole the whole category of health and wellness, right? One industry which did not see a reduction was the area of health products, and in some way we also saw, because we took this opportunity to reach out to our consumers around this whole area of health to help them deal with the challenges that they were facing. So we did an event called Health at Home, where we brought in experts around different aspects of health: mental health, physical health, nutritional health, yoga, doctors, specialists, etc. And the number of people who visited, we had a Facebook Live event, and we touched about 40 million people in that event over a period of about 6-8 weeks. Clearly, many people were willing to look at that. We started a helpline on mental health through our partnership with Empower. And initially, I was, I remember having debated whether people will really use the helpline and seek services. We were actually surprised that we were not able to cater to the full requirement, because the number of calls coming was much more than what we had put the capacity for. And then we quickly added more capacity at the helpline. So clearly, people were willing, and we did a lot of feedback from consumers, and they were willing to take content, get advice, and so on and so forth, which is good. I do hope that this continues. And the other thing is that the whole digital adoption, right? So people knew that physical world was not there for a long time. So just readiness to seek advice physically, digitally. And in addition, we saw people using telemedicine, for example. People were very averse to just consulting a doctor on that telephone, but suddenly the usage went so high, and which is good, because these are, I would say, not only I think indicators of what happened during this time, but in a way they are triggers of what will happen in the future, and businesses will have to be ready to adapt and adopt to the these new way of beings, which consumers have clearly demonstrated. Health and wellness more broadly, but digital adoption and something which is more relevant for them. And the other thing we saw was something which is affordable. So if you could kind of bring them down into bits and bytes and make it more affordable to consume, I think we also saw that being used more than full services at times.
Sure. What were some of the key learnings, Mayank, in the last 3 quarters at an organizational level in terms of how we all have been able to manage the disruption at work, let's say?
See, clearly, I think one of the first thing was organization resilience and organization, the agility with which we can respond to an event like this, right? I think at the core was that. And therefore, how ready are you to deal with a very unexpected event? So you may have a wonderful business continuity plan, but who would have planned anywhere in the world that, you'll have to completely work from home? Like all of us did our whole testing of something happening or events happening, a typical business continuity plan but no one would have ever thought of a pandemic like this, right? Work from home. So I think this clearly showed that the ability to kind of quickly respond to something that is just so much unexpected. So that was one area. The second is that how do you kind of have an ability to kind of engage with people in the remote environment, right? So work from home became the norm, but what we did realize that people, we are all social beings, and at the end of the day, interaction is very, very important. Communication is important. So it was not just about the technical skills, but the human skills, softer skills, in terms of how we were engaging with people, just making them feel that we were there for them, there for them, and be there for them in terms of support, for whatever issues they had. That became relevant. I think one of the biggest advantage of this, if you ask me, Kumar, has been that from a learning and development perspective, I think the usage of digital, I remember, when we used to talk about e-learning and stuff like that, people were still used to this classroom training and being together and all of that. But I think the digital training, readiness for that, to me is a huge issue, right? And I'll tell you why. The reason is that you can provide the best training from the best trainer to anyone and everyone across the country, which is designed for that segment. And I'll give you an example. We have a large agency force and sales force cut across the country. Typically in physical training, you would have them getting into a room. There'll be restrictions of how many, at what batch size, do you have the best trainer there? Suddenly we could actually create a training program for someone sitting in Bengal, teaching in Bengali to everyone, who actually understands that language, or on a Hindi or a Tamil or a Telugu, the best trainer doing training for everyone who understands that language for that particular subject. And your ability to reach out to people at scale, at their convenience, something which is meant for them. I think that is a huge advantage to my mind, segmenting and making it for them. Plus, the other learning as an organization is that we suddenly realize, oh, if people can do work from home, that there's so many other kind of people who can be part of your workforce. True. You don't need people who necessarily have to come to your office full 8-9 hours a day, right? I mean, I'm very hopeful about a few categories, right? Women who can give 2, 3, 4, 5 hours working from home, who can be trained to do work. And there's such large population in India which can suddenly be part of the workforce.
True.
The whole so-called gig workforce is now a reality, right? They can work at their convenience. People who've retired, people who have some kind of some challenge, some disability, now they can work. I think it is such a big positive that you'll have so many more kind of people who are part of the workforce. I'm very excited about this possibility going forward, Kumar.
And those are some interesting points, Mayank. And given the fact that we are moving in that direction, slowly and steadily, what would be your sort of strategic asks from the Chief Learning Officer going forward, given the experience of what you had, given the possibilities that lie ahead?
Yeah, so I think I'm very happy that you call it learning and you don't call it training, right? Because my own personal belief is that training is imparted, learning is taken, right? And unless you are a learner, a trainer can do nothing.
Sure.
So I think that's where the role of the Chief Learning Officer starts. At how do you actually just create this whole culture of why learning is important. And with the way technology is now disrupting everything and work, and what can be done by technology today. So what is relevant, the skills that are relevant for tomorrow, just I think partnering with the senior team, with the CEO, with the senior leaders, to create that culture of understanding that learning new skill is no longer an option, it's actually an imperative. And
True.
it's not about what you think, oh, is this skill relevant for me? Because so many new categories of skills are becoming so much more relevant today. I mean, not just linked to the whole world of technology, but also therefore on adaptability, resilience, as I said, just being able to deal with people. If new categories of workforce is going to come into play, then just dealing with them is a very different skill as managers, right? So I think just being creating that atmosphere of learning, and also creating that ability for the organization to understand what are the new skills of tomorrow, and therefore making the organization ready, working with the CEO, working with the COO, and other senior leaders, to create that ability for the organization to learn and create that learning culture. To me, that's the biggest thing, and that's what I always tell my head of learning and development, that your job is more to kind of make people understand that it's a career learning. I mean, even for this, as a CEO, I have to show that to the organization, so that learning is never stops, and and something that can never be outsourced. It has to be taken by you yourself.
So it's more a sort of a cultural aspect that you would push strategic learning around. Right?
I would do that, because then I believe that the adoption becomes so much more relevant. I mean, content is not an issue, Kumar, to my mind. I
I
mean,
agree.
getting people to come and train is not an issue. It's
True.
about the organization's willingness and ability to just participate in that process on its own.
True. True. In closing, my last question, Mayank, would be, this has obviously also been a time where, individuals, are going through a lot of learning themselves. So even for yourself, this has been an interesting phase, I'm sure. And what are some of the key takeaways, on work-life balance, or even at a personal level, that you think we can learn from?
Yeah, many things. Is something like this happens, you just realize that life is so uncertain, right? So many of the things that one would tend to deprioritize, say, oh, let's keep it on the side, we'll pick it up later on. You suddenly realize, oh my God, no, it's not. It's not so. So I think just starting from a basic thing. I mean, of spending more time with your near and loved ones, right?
Sure.
My son, who's in US, the elder one, was in India, because it's all online, and we're just getting an opportunity to spend more time with him, just using technology like Zoom to reach out to parents who don't stay with us, or other nephews and nieces, and cousins, etc., and friends and colleagues. I think that was one big part, and it gets extended at work to just reaching out. I would have reached out to people at work, uh, you know, uh, and interacted with them and their families, which the digital world makes at scale that I would never have done in the past. Right? I think it just creates so much more connect, both personally and professionally. So that deeper connect, emotionally and personally, I think that is one big thing that I use this opportunity for. Of course, from a learning perspective, when you at this age, and at this stage of career, you start thinking about, oh, the time ahead. So there's some aspect of spiritual stuff that comes to your mind. So just meditation and thinking about the spiritual world. And I spend some time looking at what someone like Sadhguru has to say. I'm a firm believer of him. But also reading a lot of stuff, right? I use this time to read a lot, and just reading about what's happening in ahead. What is it that is going to kind of change everything, right? So I follow this person called Peter Diamandis, who's someone who talks about exponential, and
Sure.
the world of abundance versus the world of scarcity. and just reading about that. So I tell this to my colleagues all the time, that I share, whatever I read, I share a synopsis of that with my team. And that just knowing, being more positive about the world of possibilities than the world of challenges, I think makes such a big difference in the way you deal with and approach a problem, than with the mindset of a problem and a challenge, because then you find so many different answers.
True.
And and suddenly life becomes with actually full of possibilities and opportunities. And I think that's why, as an organization also, we did wonderfully well. And that's because the team just worked on it as possibilities, and we all just came together and responded to it, that now is an opportunity to respond the way consumers want. So I think both personally and professionally, it has been a very enriching thing. Of course, it has been stressful. Let me say that it has been stressful at times, because when you care, when you think about people at risk, your employees, your loved ones, it does create stress. But the only way to deal with it is to stay positive, and I think then things just change so drastically.
Well, we've come to the end of the session, Mayank, but thank you so much for joining us, and some very good sort of learnings from you. And I'm sure the chief learning officers amongst our viewers are taking some good notes. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, Kumar. Thank you.